Hello everybody, it's Merlin here, and well, this is an occasion where I prove that I do requests, but I also prove that sometimes it takes me a while to get back to people. Well, speaking of which, I'm going to try and get some requests that were made a couple months ago. I did this little video asking you guys for ideas about topics to review and discuss different things, and I really want to hit this hard and start getting them out. So this is one that wasn't on that, but was requested a long time ago that I just never really got into. And that was from Omar Gardner back in I don't know, early 2013 or something at some point. So probably a good 2 years ago at least. I started to get into Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I had never really watched it before, and it's kind of funny. I kind of always sort of turned my nose up at it, like years ago. I mean, it was on when I was a kid, but, you know, it never really interested me because I thought it's a movie about a teenage girl cheerleader who fights vampires. It just seemed so silly, so stupid. So, you know, I wasn't really that interested in it. But then, of course, in 2012, this little film called The Avengers came out, and you guys know that, of course, I'm a big fan of superhero films. And I was like, wow, The Avengers is awesome. It's pretty much the pinnacle of transferring comic book storylines onto cinema, or one of them at least. And, you know, I was like, who's behind this film? Directed by Joss Whedon. And I'm like, wait a minute, I gotta look this guy up. Wait, this guy did Firefly. He also did Dollhouse. He also helped write Toy Story. And where he got his start, arguably what he's best known for, maybe besides The Avengers and Firefly, I don't know, maybe even more so, really, is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I was like, wow, maybe there's something to this. I mean, I'm impressed by pretty much everything else this guy's ever done. So, basically, I started watching it, and Omar asked me to just do a video discussing it. Just wanted to hear my thoughts on it. And I never got around to it because life happened. I guess I just got busy with things. It's just been a busy couple years. And I only really watched the first season, and I started season 2, but I just didn't keep going. And so recently I finished season 2, and I'm into season 3 now, so I'm finally getting back to it. And I'm sort of really rediscovering it. And Buffy the Vampire Slayer is awesome. I don't know how many people on my channel have watched it, but it really is a fantastic show. It's on Netflix right now, so it's available for you to check it out, as well as its spin-off series, Angel. But I guess what I'll do in this video here is I'll discuss the first season primarily, just my first impressions of Buffy and what I think about the series so far as a whole, and a little bit about my first impressions of the second season and maybe a little bit of the third here. Well, I guess I'll start off with the characters because I think that's the most important thing here. Really, I think the best thing about Joss Whedon overall, probably two things. And that first thing is that he is really, really good at writing dialogue. Dialogue that is both somehow witty and stands out and is memorable with a strong punch to it that seems almost unreal, but somehow manages to make it believable, and therefore, the second thing, making really believable, well-rounded characters. Joss Whedon seems to know two things very well. He knows pop culture, primarily geek lore and nerd stuff and just fandom, and he also knows people. He really knows people. And I would not be surprised, like many great writers, that his writing is derivative from his own experiences. And you really see that here, I think. And with Buffy, you have some really great characters. We'll start with the main character of Buffy, Summers herself. Buffy is a vampire slayer. She's the chosen one. Basically, she's been given superpowers like strength and agility and just this strong ability and destiny to kill vampires and anything else supernatural evil that's in the California town of Sunnydale where she resides. And she didn't really want it. Basically, what the first couple seasons are really about are her trying to struggle with having a normal life as a teenage girl and try to do normal, teenage girl things, but also having to succumb to dealing with all these monsters and vampires and whatnot. And I think it's impressive because Buffy's not a character that I would think I would like. But she's a really good character, and I think that she, like all the other characters, has grown quite a bit in the first couple seasons I've watched. And it's really awesome. She is just so believable, and she can kick butt and be badass, but she's also incredibly vulnerable at the same time. And Sarah Michelle Gellar does a really good job portraying her. She's a really great central character. You've also got Xander, who's kind of the wisecracking geek of the group, and he's always got something smart to say. I feel like if Peter Parker was always Spider-Man, even when he wasn't out of the costume, that's pretty much what Xander would be. Xander's funny. Sometimes he gets on my nerves, but he basically has a huge crush on Buffy, and kind of is longing for her for a long time and will do anything for her. But he's actually a pretty cool guy. He's pretty loyal, and he's a really likable guy. He's the most Whedon-esque, I think, of the characters in terms of that witty dialogue. He's the guy with all the references to geek culture, though there's been less of that in season 2 and 3. But definitely a fun character. Balances out with some of the comic relief, I would say, though not always. Then there's Willow. Willow's kind of the shy, introverted girl who is, kind of the person you wouldn't think Buffy would probably have hung out with if things were the status quo back home before she became a Slayer. But she's basically Buffy's best friend, and she's sort of the tech person and eventually a witch. I'm not going to go into that in too much detail because I haven't gotten to that yet, but I know quite a bit about that. She's basically the smart one, but she's also kind of the moral compass of the group. I think she kind of grounds everybody together. But she's really great. I think she's gone through a lot of growth as well, and she kind of has there's this sort of almost not love triangle where Willow really is in love with Xander, but Xander wants Buffy and doesn't notice Willow at all, and then he kind of does, and it still doesn't work, and it's irritating, but it seems kind of realistic, so that is something that, surprisingly, I've been pretty invested in. And then there's Giles, who is basically the old librarian in the high school who is Buffy's watcher, and the watchers serve as people to basically they observe the Slayers, but they also assist them, they do the research, they have all the knowledge on the demonic forces. He's kind of the old mentor, Obi-Wan, father figure in Buffy's life because her father isn't really around anymore, her parents got divorced. And Giles is a great character. He seems like a very timid guy, not particularly intimidating or awesome at first, but a very likable guy. You really do like him. He seems like a genuine father figure as well, and offers a lot of good advice. And I would argue is kind of oddly enough the de facto leader. Like if the Scooby Gang, as they're called, were the X-Men, he'd be sort of like Charles Xavier. So that means that there is some awesomeness about Giles' backstory. He's pretty cool, yeah, in his earlier days for certain. But Giles is great. And of course there's Angel, who is the vampire turned good, who is Buffy's primary love interest. And Angel's a character, he's that dark, mysterious, brooding character that I think some people might like, and I hate these characters. I always do. They're in every story ever, the gothic, angsty, emo person, or whatever you want to call it, any given day. But you know what? I actually like Angel too. He's actually a tortured soul, literally, and he, of course, loves Buffy, which sort of precedes the whole Twilight Edward Cullen thing, and the fact that he's like over 100 years old and she's technically an underage girl, and there's all kinds of jokes there, and I don't know why I ignore it or why anybody else does, but hey, what do I know? So it's just like, it is what it is. But I think that their romance is pretty well developed, and it really goes to some dark places, and I won't spoil anything, but Angel, of course, as some of you might know, becomes a villain later on, and I'll say one thing. Angel's a better villain than than he is a good guy. Don't get me wrong, I like Angel as a good guy, but when he goes to the dark side for a while, man, he's such a good villain. But Angel's very well done, and I'm excited to see where his spin-off show goes. I know some people that even like that more. Actually, it did pretty well. There's Oz, who's played by Seth Green, comes in later, and I won't reveal the twist about him, but he's a pretty good character too. There's, of course, Buffy's mom's good. There's the principal, who's also Quark from Deep Space Nine. Armin Shimmerman, I believe his name is. He's really good as a bad guy there. Since season 1 is the one that I guess I like the most so far. I'll talk a little bit about it. It's pretty simple. Basically, the primary plot, it's kind of like X-Files, where in X-Files it's the aliens and then there's the monster of the week. The primary plot of this series is Buffy fights vampires, and the vampires are evil, and they're trying to find ways to open up the Hellmouth, which is basically this portal to hell, that all evil is centered around and attracted around this town, hence why Buffy and the vampires are here. And the vampires are like more than just raging monsters. When they're united under a single purpose, they actually are trying to bring all kinds of evil into the world. And that's the main plot, is whatever the evil vampires they're fighting on any particular given week, what their plots are. And usually, the Monster of the Week episodes where they fight some sort of weird monster or creature, undead thing, demon, half the time it's involved with something the vampire summoned anyway. So most of the plots are interconnected, and there's fun callbacks to previous episodes. I like the evil praying mantis thing. There's like some evil bug lady. It was a really good episode in the first season. But the reason I like the first season the most so far, though, is because the Master. The Master is basically the lead vampire that's been trapped, and they're trying to find ways to get his power back and to release him so that he can just bring about the forces of evil. And he's just the main villain of season 1, and he's kind of like this really laid back, very down-to-earth villain. He speaks like a normal person. He doesn't really do too much speechifying or grandstanding, which is, I love that when they do that, when they sort of turn that on their head. He doesn't do the stereotypical high and mighty, sophisticated evil villain thing. He's just like, oh, I'm a bad guy, and I'm evil, It's funny. It's kind of like if you guys saw the new Star Trek movie, there's Nero. He's the big bad guy in the movie, and unlike most Star Trek villains who speak rather eloquently and, refined, he's just like, hey, I'm a normal guy. It's just like, it throws you off your guard. But the Master was a great villain, and he was awesome. And eventually you get Spike, who's arguably the most popular character in the show, who's another evil vampire that gets involved with Angel, and of course Drusilla, another villain. And he's a really awesome character too. I'm looking forward to see how he goes. But James Marsters, you might remember from a certain Dragon Ball movie we won't go into, but he was one of the few good things about it. Yeah, basically, season 1 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer was great. I like the series so far. If you guys haven't checked it out for some reason, because I know I avoided it for a long time, give it a shot. Watch a couple episodes. You might be surprised. It does have that silliness to some degree. Like, it is kind of goofy and campy. I mean, it is. It's a 90s, a supernatural teen show, but it's pretty well written. I mean, the comedy works, the characters are very believable, the drama gets really intense, and the story is actually pretty good. It's got some good bad guys, some decent choreography. It's not bad so far. I'm actually enjoying it and looking forward to see where the series goes, and if it gets really bad, I might drop off or skip a season. But yeah, I know I'm a little behind on this, but Buffy the Vampire Slayer, it's pretty good. So yeah, check it out on Netflix if you want to. It's available right now, and yeah, give it a shot. Alright guys, well if you watch Buffy, let me know what you think, and if you haven't, check it out. Alright, better late than never. Thank you guys. Merlin out.